and get started. So hello again, everybody, and welcome to this virtual panel discussion on how to stay healthy during the COVID-19 pandemic. As a reminder, all of the resource materials and recordings of previous discussions are on our COVID-19 resource page at nsaspeaker.org/COVID-19. During tonight's discussion, we'll discuss the vital role that physical and mental health play in productivity and longevity, and the tools to manage stress. As always, we encourage you to submit your questions through the Q&A feature in Zoom, or if you're on Facebook joining us there, go ahead and post your questions, and Matt from our team will transfer them over into the Q&A. Please help me in welcoming our panelists tonight. We have Dr. Pamela Benitez Molador. She began her surgical career as a trauma surgeon, then transitioned to a general surgery practice and is now a breast cancer surgeon in solo practice. Please welcome the other Dr. Molador. Eliz Green isn't a doctor, but she's ridiculously excited about stress and has spent the last 3 years researching job stress caused by uncertainty and overwhelm. Exactly what we're going through right now. And Dr. Ricky Chang is licensed and board certified in internal medicine. He's currently a fellow at the UCLA Center for East-West Medicine. He's also working on a collaborative project with a humanitarian NGO called SUTG Medical Foundation to bring the integrative East-West model to the underserved population. So we have a wonderful, wonderful panel, and thank you all for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started with you, Dr. Pamela. We're dealing with a lot of uncertainty right now. You're a solopreneur. Has this affected you? And if so, how have you dealt with and managed the uncertainty?
Well, as you can all imagine, the onset of COVID-19 really changed the way that I do business as a surgeon and also caring for my patients. I'm no longer caring for patients in the office, though they really need to see me. I'm not operating on cancer patients, even though they need to have their cancer care. And I have no employees. My main employee went home sick, probably with COVID-19, and we're still waiting for her results. And the other one said, I'm out of here, and she chose to go for unemployment. So I still have to run my practice because I'm really concerned that my practice doesn't go under during this time. So the other thing, overnight, and you've probably watched the news, overnight, the place where I work, Beaumont Health Systems in Royal Oak, Michigan, became the epicenter of COVID-19 in Michigan. And we went from 0 to the numbers that we have. They escalated so quickly. It caught all of us quite by surprise, even though we were watching what was happening all over the world and in New York. The outpatient operating rooms were closed down. The cases that needed to be performed were switched over to the hospital operating rooms. All scheduled future cases were then canceled. So we had to contact patients with cancer to let them know that we couldn't do their surgery. Patients were told to cancel their routine appointments, and physicians were told to figure out, like overnight, how you were going to treat patients, take care of them, call them, counsel them, all just to me in a flash. And I came home and I literally found myself frozen in fear for several days, asking myself, how was I, as a solo private practitioner, how was I going to keep my practice alive? How would I financially sustain it with, as you know, a newly retired husband? How would I or could I do this without any employees? Although I have run the office and taken care of things, how was I going to do all of this now by myself? And what was very, very real to me was how could I overcome the fear that I had going into the hospital, operating on and seeing patients in this world of COVID-19 all around me. And it was pretty frightening. Fortunately, I do have a connection to NSA, and this person in my life invited me to listen to an NSA seminar that was a few weeks ago with Mike Staver and Meredith Elliott Powell and also Mary Lou. And we sat down together and watched it, and I took the message that they shared to heart. I followed their sage advice. I got up, I got showered, I got dressed, and I went to work downstairs. And that was a huge change. We totally converted the breakfast room into my office. My phones were transferred to my home. I had to rearrange everything, find the fax machine, and set up a whole new way of doing business. And I figured out how to do that. And in 24 hours, I figured out how to do telemedicine and put that into motion. That was just an incredible feat for me. I enlisted my best girlfriend to help me get masks so that when I went in the hospital, I would feel more safe just going into the lobby. And we used the Oric vacuums bags with HEPA filters inserted in them. So I felt protected because we couldn't get the personal protective equipment that we needed just in the offices and things. So, and to my surprise, I came home and found that there was a quarantine decontamination room set up in my garage by my very wonderful husband so that I could take that fear of bringing COVID home to my family was taken away. So it really was quite the challenge for me to overcome the fear and step up to the challenge and get back to work.
Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable on this. I know that can be challenging, and you're a highly successful, obviously intelligent woman, and you know, our people, our members are going through that same uncertainty, and sometimes it can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
So Liz, to you, what about the stress caused by the uncertainty of how and when a speaker will be able to provide for their family? Brian Walter specifically asked, what about people who are really keynoters, and as we realize, large meetings, which are their bread and butter, may not be back in a big way until 2021?
It is a completely unpredictable situation. And that's why stress associated with uncertainty is so difficult. I mean, just what Dr. Pamela was talking about, that paralyzing fear, because now our environment is completely unpredictable, and our brains don't like unpredictability. In fact, there was a research study that I looked at when I was writing my book, where they brought college students in, and I'm always intrigued by how college students will go in and do psychological experiments, but they would have one of three things happen. Either they absolutely were going to get an electrical shock, they were absolutely not going to get an electrical shock, or they didn't know if they were or not. Of course, not receiving a shock is not stressful at all. But knowing that you're going to get the shock was less stressful than not knowing. That not knowing is really uncomfortable, and it stimulates this stress response in our bodies, and that's why we feel anxious and jangly, and it can come out in all kinds of different ways, whether it's anger or frustration or sadness, or just staring into your computer screen wondering if ever you're going to go anywhere else again. It's all completely normal reaction to the situation that we're in.
So in addition to the business side, there is the emotional side, right? So as an example, a lot of our speakers are on the road a lot. Now they're sheltering in place with family members, and they might be getting agitated by the family members and dealing with feelings of guilt for feeling agitated. How do you deal with that emotional side?
I have two things to say about that. First, we all have to renegotiate our environment at home. I have this beautiful wall in my office now. It's all beautiful and green. That's where my husband's desk used to be. But I knew, since I'm not going out and speaking, I was going to do a lot more of this, and I needed space that I could make look nice. He also needed his own space, and it's worked out well, but that negotiation was a little touchy. Like, you know, I didn't want to banish him from our shared office, but yet that's what needed to happen. So renegotiating that environment is important, but also recognizing that we're all grieving the expected. There are things we expected to be doing today. It is probably not sitting sheltered at home with our loved ones who know exactly how to stand on our last nerve. That grief comes out in lots of different ways, whether it's frustration with the people around you, but giving yourself a little bit of grace to understand that that grief is going to take a little while, and understanding that the people in your environment are experiencing the same thing in different ways.
That's a really good point. I think sometimes when people are under stress, maybe we don't realize we're under stress. We bury that by, diving headfirst into work or something else. Dr. Chang, what are some ways and signs that we could tell if somebody is under stress?
Thank you, Mary Lou. So to kind of add to what Elise was saying, we're all under stress, and some of us might not realize it. Some of us might have emotional or physical symptoms. And some of the things that Elise touched upon, you might feel more irritable, more angry towards your family member, your friends, just more than your baseline, and sometimes we don't even realize that's happening, but that's okay because we're all adjusting to this uncertain times right now. And sometimes you feel more impatient and things kind of just get to you more easily than usual, and that's okay. It's okay to recognize that, to see it, but once you recognize it, then you can be able to do something about it. And that's the whole point of this webinar, is to, it's okay to feel stressed, because we are stressed. All of us, our financial situations are changing, our jobs are changing, every day. Every day I read an email about COVID, and things are changing all the time, even with UCLA, just to upkeep with all this stuff. So all this daily stress. So, besides the emotional symptoms, sometimes you may just feel like, feel fed up, you don't want to do anything anymore. You have no motivation to work. You're becoming interested, in your social group, or just feeling down and depressed. And that's okay, because, we all have to adjust through this period to kind of get through it. And some of the physical symptoms you may have, because, our mind, our body are very connected with each other. So there could be just non-specific symptoms. You could have, we're on the computer a lot. So a lot of us are feeling a lot of tightness in our shoulder, in our neck, and also even low back pain or tension. And these are just manifestations of stress. So some of the things, I want to kind of talk about is the Eastern approach. Given my fellowship, we learn about the Chinese medicine modalities you can use to try to help relieve some tension in your body. And there's a lot of brochures and some handouts that's posted on the resources page. And I'm going to demonstrate one of the points that you can use, because headaches and tight neck is very common amongst a lot of people these days, especially with all the Zoom and all the computer work that we do. I'm going to share a brochure really fast, and then show you guys how to find this point. So this point is called gallbladder 20, where my cursor is. I'm going to turn around and let you kind of demonstrate what this point is. So if you touch the back of your skull, you'll find your occipital bone, so this bone that protrudes out in the back of your head. And then right beneath it, you'll feel a depression. And this is called the gallbladder 20. And in Chinese, it's called 风池, wind pond. So this point is very tense most of the time. So when you press it, if you use your thumb, you can press it, or you can link your fingers together, and you can also use more pressure to massage this point. And even if you want to massage down your neck, just because all these muscles down your neck are always very tight just by using your phone all the time, being on the computer the whole day. So this is a good point to massage for any type of neck tension, neck pain, or headaches.
Very cool.
And there are other tools you can use. For myself, I have this little massage cane that my mom got a long time for me from Taiwan. It's a handmade massage cane, but there's others you can buy on Amazon. So on the research page, there's different type of massage tools you can use. You can use it to massage your shoulders, your back, different things to help kind of relieve tension, because just being at the desk all day, you're going to build up a lot of tension. The other things you can use are like tennis balls or foam rollers, for your back. You can lay on you can put the 2 tennis balls inside a tube sock, and you can lay on it to massage your back muscles along your spinal cord. And the other physical symptoms we talk about is, a lot of people are having trouble sleeping. because your mind is constantly racing when you go to bed, making to-do lists. What am I going to do for my next paycheck? All these things are happening through your head. So people are going to have trouble sleeping. But then, so that's one of the physical symptoms you can have. But on the other hand, if you're feeling depressed or a lack of motivation, you could be sleeping too much. That's also a sign of stress. So not just sleeping too little, but too much is also a sign of stress as well.
So what's the right amount of sleep?
So for adults between ages of 25 to 65, based on the National Sleep Foundation, we recommend between 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So for myself, I try to aim at least 7, and 8 is the best, but that doesn't always happen, but 7 is a good number to aim at every night.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Pamela, we know that stress isn't good for you, but I don't think we fully understand why stress is bad. Could you talk a little bit about why stress is bad and what's happening when you're under stress?
Sure. It has its benefits and it has its downfalls. There's always the yin yang, the good, bad. But in the immediate sense, stress is really something that's adaptive, and we need that. When all of a sudden a bear comes at you, you need to run, and that's acute stress. And as a species, that's how we've evolved. That's the fight or flight response. And it really helps us to protect ourselves from dangerous situations, or in my case, it was to take action. But the important thing is to manage it, just like Ricky was saying, was to manage our stress so we don't get into a situation where it's then chronic. And it's when chronic stress becomes more prevalent as our everyday sort of modus operandi, then it will impact us physiologically and psychologically. I know Liz will talk to that as well. We get the rise in cortisol, and that certainly weakens our immune system. And our immune system is our major defense to so many insults that are out there. It leaves us vulnerable to infection and disease. We also see that epinephrine and norepinephrine become elevated with stress, and those have some real physiological factors that can cause long-term effects. Probably one of the easiest ways to see that is in our cardiovascular system. When we have this elevated epinephrine and norepinephrine, we have elevated blood pressure, our heart rate increases, and that, if sustained, will lead us to have cardiovascular disease and possibly even stroke. So we want to understand these mechanisms so we can reduce this chronic stress. We also see that it affects our gut. Our gut is a huge part of our immune system. The gut microbiome we're hearing so much about. But stress affects our gut, digestion changes, things start to slow down, and then we can develop ulcers and irritable bowel syndrome. So another very important system that's affected by stress. And we also know that, as I mentioned, that when those defenses are down, we're going to be more at risk for infection, something we want to really take note about, especially since we're all in this COVID environment. And we aren't able to resist these pathogens, the toxins, and the other chemicals that are out there trying to create harm. As Ricky was just saying, we experience more fatigue when our immune system isn't working well because of stress, and it affects our overall sense of well-being. Our brain, I have to give honor to my husband who loves the brain. It clouds our thinking. It kills brain cells and actually shrinks the brain. So stress has an effect on every single system in our body. And the last thing we want to have the effect, it accelerates aging. We know if we can get control of stress, and we can do that on a true physiological level, we can help our telomeres from shortening. We can actually cause lengthening, so we can really decelerate that aging process. So I think stress has a lot of different effects on all different aspects of our physiology.
Thank you. So back to you, Ricky. What are some things we can do to protect our health when we're under this stress? And specifically, I have a specific question about, is there anything from the Eastern perspective that we can do to boost our immune system while we're quarantined?
Yeah. So to add a little bit upon Dr. Pamela's, the physiological responses to stress, a lot of the gut issues that people may have, that's very normal. People may have bloating, heartburn, indigestion, because this is all signs of stress. So that's one key component of well-being is nutrition. So with all my patients, we talk about 4 pillars of health. The number one that we've been talking about is how to manage your stress adequately on a daily basis. Number 2 is getting adequate sleep. And not just being in bed for 8 hours or 7 hours, is getting good, restorative, deep sleep. Number 3, we just said about eating healthy, having good nutrition for your body. So you have the good ingredients so your body can heal while you're getting your 7-8 hours of sleep. And also proper exercise. So from an Eastern philosophy, there are different ways from these 4 pillars of health that you can incorporate into your daily lives to kind of boost your immunity, to boost your well-being, both emotionally and physically. So the first thing we want to really talk about as we kind of progress, we're talking about stress, is that, you have to recognize that we all have stress right now, no matter who you are, what you do for a living. But to recognize, your emotional stress or physical stress you're undergoing, and the fact that we have to take a conscious effort every day to de-stress, because we're kind of on this automatic pilot mode every day because we're working, trying to make, a living, or you're taking care of your family. You forget to really take time for yourself. I call that me time. We always need me time, and it's not selfish time. It's really time that you need to recuperate, so you can build up your energy and your reserve again, so you can do your things, the next day and take care of your families and your friends. So you just have to really every day be conscious. Okay, what am I going to do today to de-stress? Even just for 15 minutes. It doesn't even have to be an hour. It could be anything that you like to do to relax, and that way you can recognize your stress, and also, in the end, you get de-stress. Yeah, so any other questions?
No, that was awesome. Thank you. Let's delve a little bit deeper into those 4 pillars that you mentioned. And I want to start with you, Liz, because you literally wrote the book on disconnecting from stress. So how can you disconnect from stress, and why is that important? Oh, you're muted.
I am muted because the dogs were barking. They seem to be quiet now. We're going to keep our fingers crossed. Both of the doctors talked about the physiological and psychological injuries that can happen when that stress reaction is happening. So we want, it's good to have stress when you need it. If the bear's coming out of the woods, that's good, but it's supposed to go down eventually and level out. When we're at this constant triggering of our stress reaction all the time, that causes real trouble. So we can do one of 2 things. We can prevent the stress triggers from affecting us, so we can limit our exposure, or we can say, nope, I'm going to take a little break, like Dr. Ricky said. So let's talk about the limiting our exposure piece. I think one of the most stressful things right now is television news. It's all bad news all the time. And television news is designed to pull you into the story so you stay watching. And when our brains are viewing a story, they automatically want to become part of the story. So we're in it and we're living that stress of the situation, as opposed to reading the news. When we're reading the news, we're absorbing information. While we might read something that's upsetting, we're not part of the story. So my recommendation is you very much limit your exposure to television news. Pick a couple of trusted sources that you read a couple of times a day. Honestly, if something big happens, we're going to know about it. We don't need to be constantly attached to the news. Now let's talk about that, distancing ourselves from the stuff that we can't avoid. And a lot of people can find that peace in contemplative activities, whether it's meditation or yoga. That's very soothing, and it allows them to disconnect from those stressors and that stress level to come down, which is all great. But there's some of us who, if you're forced to sit still and listen to your breathing, the stress level goes up because you can't stop thinking about all the things that are out there. Those of us that need this to stop may need activities that engage our brains and our bodies in ways that allow us to disconnect from that stress. So it's why people are doing puzzles, why painting is on an upsurge. My dad was a big woodworker, would spend a lot of time sanding out in the garage. All of those busy hands, free mind, sort of repetitive motion. Sewing the masks is a great example of something that not only is busy hands, but it's of service, which also makes us feel good. So finding ways to block out the things that we don't need to help us triggering our stress, and to disconnect from the things that we can avoid will help us bring that stress level down.
Awesome. And you're thinking like we should all be cognizant and intentional about disconnecting at least once a day?
It depends on how stressed you are. And when paying attention when you feel stressed, when you feel some of those symptoms that Dr. Ricky was talking about, and thinking about, oh, well, the news was on, maybe I need to turn that off. Or, oh, I have sat on Zoom calls for 4 hours in a row and I'm feeling bad. That may be a time to go and take a little time to take care of yourself. And as Dr. Ricky said, it's not selfish. This is just survival mechanism that we need to have for ourselves.
Nice, thank you. Ricky, let's go into the second pillar of sleep. So we all know we should get 7 to 9 hours of rest now, thanks to you. But sometimes we can't turn our mind off, especially if we're anxious, or we can fall asleep, but then we wake up throughout the night. So how can we get that solid sleep?
So many of you guys probably heard this, having a good sleep hygiene every single day is very crucial to getting a good night's rest. Because most of us are probably sleeping at different times every night, waking up at different times because our work schedule now is very different, because of working at home. But despite that, you still have to kind of develop a good routine before you go to bed. So let's say if you go to bed at 10 p.m., try to prepare for sleep maybe around 9 p.m. So you have maybe an hour or at least 30 minutes to kind of prep your mind and your body. It's like, hey, it's time for sleep. It's time to calm down. Because most of us are actually, in our beds, on our phone or on our laptop, while we're trying to go to bed, we're watching TV. All of these electronic exposures is actually very detrimental for our sleep, because we're so tethered to electronics. But at some point, you have to cut the tether every day just to, limit your exposure. So this regular routine that you prepare could be like taking a bath before bed, reading a book. And then on the resource pages, there are a lot of different apps you can try, like meditation, there's guided meditation, there's music, lots of different things out there. And they're providing a lot of free content, a lot of like Calm, Headspace, lots of different things. It's all on the page you can try. Different things to kind of just disconnect from the stress and get ready. And the caveat is you have to do this even on the weekend. I know it's difficult, but most people, you can maybe sleep in an hour, but try to keep your schedule the same even on the weekend so your body keeps that routine going. So you don't go back and forth, you're sleeping well one night and not sleeping well the next night. So to go back on the electronics part, the reason why we want to disconnect from the electronics, we all heard about blue light, emits from your laptop, your iPad, your iPhone. So from a medical standpoint, blue light emit goes to your brain and your brain senses, oh, it's still daylight. So if you're using your laptop, your iPhone, or you're watching TV all the way before bedtime, your brain thinks, oh, it's still light outside. I don't need to go to bed. So then it decreases a hormone called melatonin. So melatonin is a very important hormone that you need to go into deep sleep. And it starts secretion maximally around 9 p.m. So you want to get that melatonin secretion before you go to bed. So that's why it's a good recommendation to stop using electronics at least an hour before you go to bed. Try not to read your iPad if you want to read a book. Try to just actually read an actual book. So you can kind of maximize your melatonin secretion to help go into deep sleep so you don't wake up as often. And then de-stressing, of course, before bedtime so you can fall asleep easily. Or writing down a to-do list for the next day so you don't have all these things in your mind of what you need to do. And then besides the mindfulness apps that's in the handouts, you can incorporate, acupressure massage. I showed you guys a pressure point before. I'm going to show you guys another handout. Can you guys all see these 3 pictures? Mm-hmm. So these 3 points are very good at promoting your body to relax. So the point on the left is called anmian. So in Chinese, that actually means restful sleep. And it's actually very easy to locate. So if you go behind your ear, you'll feel this bone protruding right behind the ear. So right next to it, you'll feel a little indentation. And if you press on it, it might be a little tender for you. And at that point, you can massage. You use your thumb and massage maybe for a minute or 2. Do it on both sides before you go to bed. It's okay to feel a little tenderness. That means that your qi, your energy is kind of stuck, and that can release the tension there too. And another point that you can find on yourself is, it's called the pericardium 6. It's located, so if you use 3 fingers, below the major crease line on your wrist. And then right below the 3rd finger, there's 2 tendons that pop up. For most people, you have 2 tendons here. So right beneath that, you can use your thumb to massage. This point is very popular. It's even good for nausea, vomiting. It's what's typically used for, but also it has a calming effect to help you promote good sleep. So you can massage each side for about 1 to 2 minutes. And then you can kind of just even go down, up and down around that area to see where the most tender point is. If it's tender, massage it. It'll help release that tension. Okay. And then the 3rd one over here by the ankle, I'll just have you find it on your own because I can't really show my leg on the, on the webinar. But a good way to massage this point using your 4 fingers above your ankle bone on the inside is you can use your heels to kind of massage that point. Instead of using your finger, because your finger can get tired if you have to massage all the way by your ankle, you can use your heel to kind of massage each side for a minute or 2, okay, to help you with sleep.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Pamela, let's talk about the 3rd pillar of nutrition, which some of us struggle with. So what role does nutrition play in managing stress? Like, we all know, like, if you eat healthy, you can manage stress better, but why?
So I'm going to go into my little science mode, because this is one of my favorite things to talk about and to share with my patients, because I think if you understand the basic science of what's going on in our bodies, you'll understand how nutrition plays a huge role. There is, as we've all been talking about, there's this really clear connection between stress and chronic inflammation, and nutrition is probably one of the most important antidotes to chronic inflammation. So the science, and I have my notes here, just I don't want to forget any pieces for you. Oxidative stress is defined as the overproduction of free radicals, which are toxic byproducts of metabolism of oxygen. So as we live and breathe oxygen, we are producing free radicals. It's a normal phenomenon. That's how we were created. And our bodies do help us with this whole process. What happens is these free radicals are unstable molecules, and they're going to want to neutralize themselves. So they're going to steal an electron from another molecule to try to neutralize themselves. And this process goes on, and we have this chain reaction, but we're left with these unstable molecules, and they can wreak havoc on our bodies. So the way we were created was our body was created to produce antioxidants to combat this process of oxidation. And as times have moved on, there has been such an increase in the production of free radicals that our bodies can't keep up with this. And we can't produce enough antioxidants to combat the free radical production and the oxidative stress that it creates in our bodies. And the oxidative stress is really the damage that these free radicals do to cell membranes, to the mitochondria that produces energy in our cells, to the proteins in our cells, and even to DNA. So now we have this this free radical damage happening and affecting so much of our bodies on the cellular level, we really need more antioxidants, phytonutrients, and micronutrients to combat this oxidative stress. And that's really the scientific basis of why nutrition is one of the major ways that we can combat the effects of chronic inflammation and the effects of chronic stress. The inflammatory process also is a huge part of this whole oxidative stress equation, if you will. And the solution is to really, for all of us, to consume more antioxidants, phytonutrients, and micronutrients, and those are found in plant-based foods. And we're hearing so much, we can't even go to the store and pick up a magazine without reading about plant-based nutrition and all the research and attention it's getting, but that's for a real reason. The reason is that it is answering the problem of the damage that free radicals are causing on our bodies on a physiological level. So that's how nutrition will help us to manage stress.
So, Dr. Pam, it's obviously really important to eat better. But for some of us that really don't eat healthy, how do we start to eat healthy in a realistic manner? And especially right now on a budget?
So my first sort of thought is to cook at home. You know, I think a lot of us in the past, and it was, you know, our lives have changed, is really to cook at home. It's much cheaper and to cook at home. And the second piece, which fits in with that, is to buy in bulk. For example, we'll buy large bags of spinach, and whatever we may not choose to eat fresh, we'll go ahead and freeze it. We'll buy frozen fruits and frozen veggies, and also buy power greens in bulk. And we're going to use these in lots of different ways. So it's not like they're going to go to waste. We're going to use a lot of our big bags of spinach. We're going to use it in cooking eggs. We're going to use it on our pizza. We're going to put it in our smoothies. So buying in bulk, as long as you have your meals planned out, you can figure out how to do that and not throw that away. A lot of people were concerned when the big rush to the grocery stores and people say, oh, I can't buy all this fresh stuff because I'm not going to use it. But if you really figure out how you're going to eat more plants, then you're going to be having salads every day. You will certainly consume the fresh produce. What we also do is we take that big bag of power greens and we freeze it. And then we crumble it up when it's frozen. We add that to our smoothies every single day, along with the frozen berries, the frozen pineapple and other fruits. So now we have really good nutrition in our smoothie, which is a complete meal. Our smoothie happens to be all plant-based. It's non-GMO soy protein, and it gives us a complete meal. We do it at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, just depends on what's happening in our lives. And because we try to be non-dairy, we use almond breeze. So that's a very inexpensive way for you to have a meal. Our smoothie costs about $3 a smoothie if I put into it the cost of the frozen fruit and the power greens. So it's a very inexpensive meal. I think yogurt is inexpensive. It's a great snack. It's a great protein, and it's a part of a plant-based meal. I'm not talking about being vegan, but saying more towards the vegetarian side. We snack on carrots and apples and oranges and nuts. Nuts are really great, especially almonds and walnuts and cashews. You know, 8 to 15 nuts is a great snack, and you're going to really help with your plant-based nutritional plan. We buy the big tub of hummus. It's a great protein as well for snacking. And of course, the basic sort of one of the basic proteins in a plant-based meal are beans, legumes, lentils, and all of that is very, very inexpensive. Quinoa, it's just becoming creative and start finding new recipes. Oatmeal, another great grain, is very inexpensive, and it's a great meal for breakfast or lunch if you're hanging around the house and you want a bowl of oatmeal for lunch. But by doing all of that, I think that you can affordably get, now, you know what we need, 7 to 13 servings of fruits and veggies every single day. And it's hard to do. And so I think you have to be a little bit creative. Unfortunately, what this sheltering has done for me is now have a chef at home, and I think not only am I going to get Zoom but I think I'm gaining weight because I'm eating such great meals, and we're learning, we're teaching, and we're learning more plant-based recipes, and it's very, very inexpensive. So I think that we're not eating a lot of meat. That's probably where a lot of the cost comes in. So I think plant-based nutrition can be achieved very optimally for less cost. And it's really going to help us in affecting that chronic inflammation and helping immune health all the way around.
Well, and Dr. Pamela, you have a handout on that as well too. That's going to be added to the resource page. Thank you. Eliz, what would you add to that?
I think feeding yourself well doesn't have to be overly complicated. There's the MyPlate model developed by the USDA. I work with a lot of registered dietitians professionally. So I've been very influenced by that. If you just think about dividing your plate, about half of that plate should be filled with fruits and vegetables. Doesn't really matter to me if it's a fresh fruit, a canned fruit, a frozen fruit or vegetable. You want to have low sugar fruit. If it's canned, you want to have low sodium vegetables if it's a canned vegetable. So half of your plate is filled with fruits and vegetables, produce of some sort. The rest of it, you get grains. Hopefully half of those grains are whole grain, low fat dairy, low fat animal protein if that's the protein that you choose to eat, or other types of protein. It doesn't have to be that complicated, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Just really eat a gosh darn carrot once in a while.
So let's talk about the next pillar, which is exercise and activity. Dr. Pamela, you mentioned Zumba. What are some exercises? So in addition to managing stress, it can help us with when we're just sitting and being on calls all day, getting little exercise. What are some exercises that we can, again, reasonably do from home?
Well, I think one of my favorites is yoga, and you can find all kinds of programs online. And this is, I'm going to make the assumption that we don't have home gyms at home. So I'm going to make the assumption that we weren't expecting this, and nobody has a treadmill and a Stairmaster at home. So I find that yoga, and Dr. Chang talked about that. I think yoga is a great exercise, and it's meditative. I recommend it to my patients anyway because it's great for bone health, strengthening, stability. So easy to do. You don't even need a mat. You just do it in front of your TV, and home yoga is just great. And the other nice thing about doing it at home is no one's seeing your downward facing dog. So it's all your own thing. I have participated in the squat challenge. I don't know if you guys have heard about the squat challenge. You do it with your friends, and it's a killer, but it works very well. You could do step-ups, just have a nice sturdy box at home and do your step-ups. That's going to help your legs, and it's going to help your aerobic activity. There's lunges of all kinds, side lunges, front lunges. Lunges will help you as well. Ab exercises, sit-ups, plank, side twists, all of that will really help your core, and your core is going to help, as we were talking about, your back strength and help your spine. I have at times used a gallon jug. I don't have any more of water, so I use a gallon jug of water as my sort of dumbbell for dumbbell rows, and you can do that without equipment. Obviously, walk up and down the stairs. But one of the greatest things, I think, is just going outside, and we all need that. I think that really is a help to de-stress. Just keep your distance, but going outside and walking, running outside is a great way to exercise. If you did buy a couple of things and you didn't want to spend too much money because you're going to eventually get back to the gym, I think an exercise ball and some bands are very useful, and you can go online and find ways to do all kinds of different exercises for your body with an exercise ball and bands. And all of this really helps us to reduce that inflammation that leads that whole process of, as I was talking about, oxidative stress. We're really trying to bring that down, and with moderate exercise we can do that. So lots of things you can do at home. Just be creative.
So I have another question from the audience. Is most days they go on an 8 to 10 mile bike ride on a paved trail with their adult daughter. They maintain careful distance from other cyclists and those walking as individuals and families. Is it necessary or even effective for them to also wear masks while riding bike?
I personally think that you don't need to if you're keeping your distance. And I think that masks, you know, in the beginning when this all started, they were saying that you really didn't need to wear masks. And I think we just sort of felt innately that it was a smart thing to do. And if you're not in communication with other people, so if we're out walking and we're keeping our distance, we don't wear masks. If we go to the grocery store, still keeping our distance, we do wear a mask because we feel that it's more confined space. So for me, I don't think if you're outdoor exercising that you need to wear a mask.
Eliz, what would you add to exercise?
I'm a big fan of chores as exercise because it accomplishes a number of things at the same time. First, you're making your physical surroundings better, so that's nice, whether it's cleaning or doing yard work or doing the long list of household projects that never get done and that finally are getting done. But I would agree that exercise is one of those things that help us disconnect from the source of our stress, and is extraordinarily effective for lots of people. Getting a good sweat on is a good thing. One of the things I think is really popular right now is organizing closets, organizing garages, cleaning out this or that, which putting your house in order quite literally is soothing as well. So when you can layer on things that are helping you distract from the things that are causing you stress, putting your house in order and getting a little physical exercise, woo, that's a good thing to do.
Now you're speaking my language. Customize it. Ricky, what are some other forms of exercise, especially from like an Eastern perspective?
So all the exercises Dr. Pamela has suggested, those are all great cardio aerobic exercise to do at home, to get your body moving, get your blood pumping, to kind of wake you up. But from an Eastern perspective, exercises are mostly based on the principles of qi. So qi is the life force, the energy that runs through your body. We have meridians all throughout the body. And you know, when I talked about the acupressure points, those points, when you're stimulated, it helps stimulate the flow of that energy throughout the body. And then a lot of the ancient forms of exercise from Chinese medicine, such as Qigong, practices this, trying to move the Qi along the body to get things moving. It may look easy, but it's not, because a lot of these forms takes a lot of slow concentration, and it's also very mindful exercise as well. So if you already feel really depleted, if you're working a lot lately, and if you're already fatigued, I recommend not doing a lot of the high intensity exercises, such as like CrossFit or lifting lots of weights, because you can actually deplete more energy than you actually have. You can feel actually more tired. You have big muscles, but you'll feel really tired. For the Qigong, there's links that I put in the resource page you can try. There's different things because basically it's a mind, body, spirit practice that improves your mental, physical health by using different type of postures, different slow movements and breathing techniques. There's also movements you can actually do self-massage to stimulate all the meridians in your body to move along your qi. And then like Dr. Pamela said, if you prefer yoga, there's also slow restorative yoga you can do at home to really focus on your breathing, to restore that qi within the body as well with yoga. So if you don't want to try, you can try the Qigong, but if you don't like it, yoga is always a good option. I found the app recently called Down Dog. It has lots of different forms of yoga you can try. If you have an Apple TV, you can play it, stream it to your television, so it's bigger. You can do it in your living room. Yeah, so that's my recommendation from an Eastern perspective, what type of exercise you can try. Yeah, so there's links on YouTube you can try and just try different forms and see if you like it.
Nice. So, Dr. Pamela, I want to switch topics a little bit. In addition to COVID-19, people still need medical care, whether it's for ongoing conditions or illnesses or injuries or something new. how do we get medical care, and what can we do if we're feeling sick, and how do we know if we need to go to a doctor? Because I think right now a lot of people are avoiding doctors at all costs for fear of getting sick.
That's really true. So I would say that most of us have really quickly learned the use of telemedicine, and it can be as simple, what we say, well, from a phone call, but to FaceTime or Zoom meetings with patients. And HIPAA, as you know, has relaxed all of the rules for seeing patients virtually. So we've been given quite a wide berth in our ability to communicate with patients. So I've encouraged people to meet with me on FaceTime or Zoom. Sometimes it's a challenge, but we really work through it. But I found even just a phone call really helps to relieve the stress that people are feeling right now about their health, and just being able to reach out and being able to talk with a healthcare provider has made a big difference for patients. So most importantly is I encourage you to be in contact with your provider if you're feeling anxiety, and you just need to reach out and say, are you there? So all of that is working. I mean, I'm seeing new diagnosis of breast cancer patients on Zoom, on FaceTime, and I can immediately talk to them, go through their pathology reports, alleviate their anxiety, tell them how we can treat them until we can get them to the operating room. And that when I hear the sigh of relief, it's amazing. So you can get in touch with your healthcare provider. But I think what's really, when you're talking about COVID-19 and the flu, kind of knowing when to call your doctor. So as we've heard, probably 80% or more of the cases of COVID-19 are just like the flu. It's just like any influenza virus, and we're going to treat ourselves like we would a year ago. So we're going to get rest. We're going to get those 7 to 9 hours, right, Ricky, of rest, and maybe a little bit more. We're going to hydrate. We're going to eat well. So we're going to do all the things we used to do, maybe take some Tylenol and get some maybe over-the-counter cold and sinus medication. That's how we should treat most of our symptoms. The time that you really need to call your doctor is if you're having trouble breathing. And I encourage you to call your doctor, and I encourage you not to go to the emergency room. That is the last place you want to go, because our emergency rooms are just filled with very sick patients. Even some of our known COVID patients are taking up some of the berths in the emergency room. So I would encourage you to not go to the emergency room unless it's truly an emergency. If you're starting to have trouble breathing, contact your doctor. They're going to assess you on the phone, or they're going to do a telemedicine visit with you, figure out, look at you, see what difficulties you're having, work with you on either some mild treatment, or tell you then you need to go to the hospital. Most of us don't need antibiotics. Most of us don't need prescription medications to get through the influenza that we may experience. So those are the times that I would recommend when I would call my primary care. But otherwise, it's probably going to be like the flu or a bad case of flu that you can treat at home.
Okay, in a slightly different but along the same veins, Eliz, I know you feel strongly about people getting help if they're experiencing mental health issues. One, I know you have a resource. Do you have some other resources you could share? But in addition to that, how can somebody ask help? Because sometimes that's the barrier, is even asking for help. So what
right. And this pandemic didn't happen in a vacuum. People were experiencing depression or anxiety or having emotional issues or grieving a loss already when this happened. So this may have piled on more than we're able to handle on their own. And you're right, our friends and family may not be the people who can help us through that. Talking to somebody who's trained to do that, it can make all the difference. And what Dr. Pamela was talking about just now is a great place to start. If you have a good relationship with your doctor, start with your doctor. Your primary care physician can be that way to open the door to get the help that you need, because you're right, sometimes it's hard to find. There are lots of ways. Ricky talked about some of the apps that are out there to help calm our minds. There's also things out there to have live virtual talk therapy. There's lots of opportunities now. But I really want to say, if you are feeling overwhelmed by all of this and know that you need help, or know somebody who does need help, particularly if you're feeling like hurting yourself or someone else, or know somebody who's having those thoughts, I really would encourage you to get help. And I want to share the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. And again, it's 1-800-273-8255. It's staffed 24 hours a day. It is there to provide resources for you, or if you're caring for someone who needs those resources. So there are ways to get help, and there should be no shame about needing help. This is a difficult situation we're all dealing with.
Well, I mean, we're always trying to look for some silver linings, and I think we were seeing a rise of talk about mental health before COVID, and I think it's like accelerated with COVID, because I think a lot of people struggle with mental health and they don't ask for the help, and it is stigmatized when it shouldn't be. We all need help at some point.
It's health. You go to the doctor when you need help with your health. It shouldn't be any different.
So, Ricky, how important are social connections when we're stressed?
I'm going to touch a little bit upon what Dr. Pamela was saying about when to see your doctor when you're having symptoms. And I think it also relates to what Liz was talking about. You know, even if you're just having an emotional breakdown, you feel a lot of anxiety, you don't even have to have cold symptoms. You know, just reach out to your primary care physician to ask them if they're having televisits or video visits, or even a phone call. Because a lot of these times, just talking to a physician or provider just about how you're feeling will make you feel better. You know, even though we're not hands-on, we're not touching you, examining you, but just having that connection over the telephone, over a video visit will help you. And then as far as if you do get a cold or just a common cold or a flu, there are options. Some people like to take supplements, and some physicians don't like supplements, but on the tip sheet, you can take vitamin C, which is a good antioxidant, where you can just eat a lot of vitamin C enriched foods with fruits to kind of boost that extra vitamin C in your body. If you don't eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, then you can supplement with the vitamin C to have the antioxidant effect to help you heal faster if you have a cold or a flu. I know zinc has been a lot in the media lately, but zinc you can take if you do have a flu or a cold, and just follow the instructions. There's a recommendation of type of zinc you can take that's more absorbable to the body. Yeah, and then as far as your other question goes, to about social connections, I think, you know, yeah, we're social distancing, you know, we're saving lives by doing social distancing, but let's not isolate ourselves, and let's not do social isolation. And I think that's very important to stress upon, because, you know, we're getting used to staying at home. And if you live by yourself and you're not reaching out to anybody, utilize your technology, utilize Zoom, utilize FaceTime, to reach out to your friends that you haven't talked to in a while. Just start reaching out, and we can have like social hour on Zoom. And, you know, we did a cooking thing with my friends last week. We put up our laptops, we cooked a dish together, and then we ate together, you know, via Zoom. And it was great, you know, even though we weren't there each other, but then it helped us, you know, feel like we're not alone. So no social isolation. It's important to keep connected. I think this is the perfect time because we have a lot of extra times, you know, at home, and it's good to reach out to people that you haven't talked to in a while, your friends and loved ones.
I just have to add, my family, my side of the family gets together for Thanksgiving once a year. And since this all happened, we've now had 2 family dinners. And so, I mean, we only see each once a year, and now we're doing across 3 time zones, we're doing family dinners. And I mean, that never happened. Just think about the good that can come out of all of this. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible. It's just incredible.
Nice. How about you, Liz? What other recommendations would you have for that?
For the social connection piece, pay attention to the people in your house. I mean, it's very easy. I know I'm in my office, my husband's in his office. We have 2 our daughters left their freshman year of college to come home, and they're doing school at home. So we can all be in the house and not see each other all day. It's important to actually have real conversation, make time for real conversation. But also, I agree with the reaching out virtually. And one of our members, Tom Singer, who is all about making connections with people, he said something I thought was really smart yesterday. He was talking about reaching out and checking with people. And there's something about that for you, but you never know who needed that check-in. And it is a mitzvah to reach out and just check in on people. Tell people we all love to be valued and seen. So tell people that you are thinking of them and you care about them. It makes a difference.
Nice. So with that, I want to thank you all. Eliz, Ricky, Dr. Pamela, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights and expertise. And to those of you who joined us, thank you for joining. We'll be posting all of these resources and the recording of this on our COVID-19 resource page. Stay safe, stay healthy, and be well.